Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. Hey everyone, and welcome to Raising Parents, the Parenting Science Insights podcast, produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element, with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Dina Sargeant. Now, let's get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode. Parental burnout. What is it? How do we know we're not just needing another coffee in our hand to top off the one that we had an hour ago? Well, our guest today can definitely help in sharing the some signs and some methods to cope with parental burnout. She has received a number of industry awards, including Family Daycare Australia's Educator of the Year Award for New South Wales and ACT. I would love to introduce to you Hélène Gatland. How are you today, Helen?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm great, thank you.
So do you mind talking a little bit about yourself and about some of the things that you have, some of the degrees that you have, for example?
Yes, so as you can hear, I'm French, and so I did a French Master of Psychology, specialized in child and adolescent. But then I moved to travel and moved to Australia. And so I decided actually to do family daycare. That's where I won the award for New South Wales, and I also got recognition from the Parliament of New South Wales. And doing this, I realized that people needed more help. And being French, there was a lot of studies done in France, or actually in Belgium, but in French-speaking countries, about parental burnout. And I realized that wasn't a term that we even used in Australia. So that's where I decided to become certified and realized that I was the first Australian coach to be certified by the Training Institute of Parental Burnout. But I'm still the only one in Australia. So I'm trying to raise awareness on parental burnout and all the amazing studies that have been done in French.
Well, it's amazing that you're the only one. Like you think that you hear the concept, but it's amazing that you're the only one that's actually completely certified in order to talk about it.
Yeah, so it's I'm not sure exactly why, but I have when I listen to podcasts in America, some of them are great, don't get me wrong, but a lot of them they use the term parental burnout almost like a fashion, not really something scientific with a lot of data behind and a lot of research behind. So I think a lot of people just think and they are right, that it is not a syndrome. It is not yet considered as a syndrome by the psychologist because it takes years to be considered as a syndrome and the mental health. So the studies only began in 2017. So what happened now? Like I feel like it will come, but I was probably one of the first one, and probably it will be for a while that I will be the only one. Just because when the study begins, normally it takes 10 years to come into people knowledge. So already that I'm already qualified is quite early. So the two researchers who are behind everything, Isabel and Moira, they are working really hard to get the knowledge outside and that people are aware of it, but it's taking time still.
Wow, that's incredible actually. Just to know that it's how long is you said 10 years, right?
Yeah, 10 years from the study. Normally, to be really like when you do a study, already takes time. Then you have to publish it, and then you have to give awareness to people. So from the moment you begin to send it to newspaper, it takes time, and then that people read it, and the people that really like understand it. So first you will send the paper to professional. So then that it goes to parents takes a very very long time.
Wow, it's amazing that we've at least got one person here who's completely who's completely certified, at least in Australia. So talking a bit more about you, we're gonna sort of start a little bit with a icebreaker. Just 5 different topics, and sort of the first thing that sort of comes to your mind when I say this sort of genres. So your first one is your favorite book.
Oh, my favorite book. Uh, I know the book that come into my mind first. Oh, my favorite book is actually a book from a French. Actually, yeah, she's French. From a French researcher. Sorry, it's not like, but she wrote a lot about how to educate children in a very respectful way, and it's very like it's coming back to the basics, like really like just respecting children. So I really enjoy reading it, and I think that's the one who changed the most the way I was with children. But to be honest, the first book who came into my mind is probably more interesting to your listeners. It was a book from Robin Grill, which is called Parenting for a Peaceful World. And it was a book that comes, like, I read it last year, and it's explaining how much we have changed the way we parent. And it was just like, there's example, you don't even think about it, like babies being just attached on a pole with something around them so they don't move, and something in their mouth so that we couldn't hear them crying because we thought they were nothing, they were an object.
Mhm.
And how far we have gone now, like not letting a child cry more than 2 seconds, not letting a child go some parenting style, don't allow a child to be on the floor. So how far we have gone, and some are really positive and some are detrimental to parents' well-being. But that was a really cool book for me to read last year when I was working with parents through parental burnout. Yeah.
That's such an interesting book, actually. I'm going to add that to my I'm going to go and have a look at it myself once I probably get off this episode. Um, how about your favorite movie?
It's an old movie, and it's in French is avoidable, so I saw it in French. But it's I think Life is Beautiful in English, and it's by Roberto Benigni. Benigni, I think, yeah, Roberto Benigni, and it's a story about a dad who is trying to, a Jewish dad which is going to concentration. Oh, I don't know how you say it in English. Concentration camp, Holocaust.
Concentration Camp?
Yeah, sorry
Yeah.
about yeah. And he's trying his best to make this experience pleasant to his child. And it's a very, very emotional movie, like really moving.
Wow, that's a really amazing, interesting topic for a
Mm,
movie to be in.
yes.
Yeah. How about your favorite podcast?
Again, I don't know if it's my favorite because I'm not really, as much as I have been in podcast, I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts.
Mhm.
But I really enjoy when I did all my podcasts, and because I know her too, I really enjoy Beyond the Bump by Jade Coldwell and Sophie Pierce. And just because, like, doing it with them, they are so honest, they are so themselves. I also know Jade really well because I had a little girl in my family daycare. Um, but they are really down to earth mothers. You can see that they are struggling and they are going with it, and I really appreciate that and this authenticity of them in the podcast.
Well, that's pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah, they are
Um,
great.
how about your famous role model?
Definitely Elon Musk, even if he's controversial, but also because he's controversial and because his brain works in a very different way. So as a psychologist, I really like to listen to him and understand his brain a little more. But also because he has a mother that really embraced it. So some people, when they have children who are very different, it's challenging for them, and some people really embrace it. And I really enjoy watching their relationship and see how she's proud of how different he is. Yeah. So
Yeah. No, I definitely can see that. I definitely can see like I love seeing their relationship as well, and just watching videos of her also just by herself and just seeing her understand him better than anyone else. No, that's actually a really good
yes.
one. How about a favorite course that you've completed?
I had a few actually, but my master of psychology, my husband always said it's what makes our couple work, and I think it really helped me to understand how to work with people and how to respect differences. So I really enjoyed it. It was also 5 years, and it was amazing time. But I also really like in my personal life, I did a permaculture course, which is
Mhm.
more about organic organic living and organic farming, and that has
Wow.
also shaped a lot my life. Yeah.
That's actually no, I really like that one. Just I feel like that's something that definitely needs to be spoken about and looked into a little bit more when especially during this day and age. So yeah, that's definitely something that I would admire as well. Um so going into parenting. So starting to talk about the topic of today, the reason why we're all here. What do you think parenting is? Like your definition, because it can definitely be different for every person. So, what's your personal definition of parenting?
That's a really hard one to answer because I think parenting is very specific to each person, as you said. And so trying to categorize it for me with my experience of so many other people, it's quite difficult. But yeah, it's the act of raising a child. And this is definitely the most difficult task, I think, in the world because it needs constant readjustment, like constant. Like it's not when you're good at something. Normally, you think, "I'm good, I'm fine, I can do this." But with parenting, you can never say
Yeah.
that. I'm good, and tomorrow your child is going to wake up with a sickness you have never seen, or in a mood that you don't know what it is, or with and then you're like, "Oh, a new challenge."
Yeah.
So yes, I feel like it's really the biggest challenge you can have in life, I think.
No, I think that's a really good definition. Like you're right. No one ever knows what's going to happen with a child. It can be okay one day, it can be going crazy the other day, and yeah. So yeah, I think that's a really good. I know that you're currently pregnant at the moment. What do you think the expectant parent needs to be aware of in the transition to parenthood?
Um, yeah, so that will be the first time it's public that I'm pregnant.
Oh, I'm so
That's all
sorry.
good. I can use it definitely very quickly, and so I will jump on that definitely first. Is how little control we have, and I keep on laughing on with my husband on how my child is in my body right now and is controlling everything. and I
Yeah.
and I love to like this podcast will have to stop at one point because I will need a break. And actually, it's my baby who will need a break. So yes, it's first it's definitely this feeling of not being able to control anymore and just going with the flow. I did the first scan last a few weeks ago. I did one scan a few weeks ago, sorry, and baby didn't want it to wake up. And you just have to not be too upset that you cannot control your baby and wake him up. So you just go with the flow. But that will be the first thing. But also a second thing is that it brings a lot of emotion, especially stress. And actually, in the study they did for parental burnout, they found that parents, like every parents, when they check the cortisol level in the hair, were more stressed than stressed students. So students going through exams. So a parent in everyday life will be more stressed than a child, students going through exam. So that's quite already you have to know that this is a very stressful journey. And so to deal with this constant stress, which is arising, you need more resources. And I think that's a massive thing that we have let go in the last 20, 30 years with people moving from home and we don't have as much resources as we had before and we have more stress than before being a parent. So that's one of the things I would like to say to parents who are expecting a child. um,
Do you think it's different now than it used to be? Like for example, 10 years ago, is it sort of the where awareness of it and what you need to be wary of? Is it different to what it was before?
Yes, so actually, in the study of parental burnout, that was one of the massive questions. Why do we speak about it now? And it hasn't been spoke about it before. So the first thing they did is actually to go back to all the all the studies and everything what has been done before and look if there was the word parental burnout or parental exhaustion. And there was really little, very, very little. So they were like, oh, this is really new. Is it really something? Is it something that is happening now? They found out, yes, it is something that is happening now. So why was it not happening before? Why is it happening now? And they came back with a few reasons. One of them is the reason that now we can choose when we want to get pregnant. So before it was a little like you get pregnant and that's your life. Like you don't have a choice in it. Now you get pregnant, and so you have this conscious decision. So how can you complain about it? Even worse when you had miscarriages, IVF, and all that kind of things that are really like you have spent time and money into having a baby. So how can you complain about it after? So there is not really this feeling that we had before. When before children, you could complain about it. You could say they're annoying. You could say now you have to be much more careful. The second thing they came with is the Convention for the Right for Children. So this is quite new. I think it was in the 1950s. Or anyway, I will say something wrong, but it was the last century. And we decided as a society that children will have rights. And this brought great stuff for children. And I don't want to say but, in the same time, I will say in the same time, it brought great pressure on parents. Because now, if you hurt a child in public, you will have issues. So you have to control much more yourself. Not saying, like, don't get me wrong, it's great that you cannot hurt a child anymore, but this brings a lot more pressure and control on parents of what they are doing with the children. And now they also understand that the children is not their object. It's a person in itself. Before it was an object. Now it's a person in itself, and it can be taken away from them. So it's a massive thing. Like, because what they found, even parents who are in high parental burnout, they still love their children. So they love their children, so they don't want these children to be taken away. But at the same time, they have such a high cortisol level that even like they are sometimes willing to be more violent with their children because cortisol brings more violence, even if people were completely not wanted to be violent. So it's a really hard balance. But that was a second thing they found, like the convention, the right for children was a big one too. And also, I think there was a lot more, but the last big one was the child psychology field growing so much. So there was no child psychologist in the 1800s. Like that was not existing. But now it's growing, and because it's growing, it's learning on the way. But what we learn on the way, and sorry everyone, we give advice and then we take it back, we give another advice and take it back. So it's very confusing for parents. So they don't know exactly that. They understand that they have an influence in their children's life. Psychologists also might believe parents that the influence they have in the children's life is much bigger than what it actually is, because when you have two twins, they're actually different. So even if you have the same education, same parents, they're actually different. So the influence that the parents has on the child is not that massive, but it's still big, but it's not as massive as genetic or actually, I always say the personal choice of the child is maybe the most important. But to come back to what I was saying, yes, all the field of the child psychology growing has brought a lot more pressure on parents, and pressure brings stress, and stress brings burnout. So that's the three main reasons why it's that prevalent now.
So is it, when it's talking about the conversation growing, that people are studying more and more on child psychology, so is that in a way negative towards, is it more negative towards parents and positive towards kids, or vice versa?
I would I'm sure that it is positive, but in the meantime, it's very demanding. So yes, if you have a child now, it's because you are because you should be interested in children. Some realize after that actually they are not really that interesting, and that's okay. But like if you go into the parenting journey, you want to grow a child, so you have the desire to do this, and so you want to do it the best you can. So the child, all the psychology that is around children is helping you doing this the best way you can. But in the same time, it's much more demanding. Like imagine before a baby would just be on the wall with a tissue in the mouth. It's not happening anymore. You try to really stimulate them, make sure they are fed, make sure they are not crying, make sure they are sleeping enough, make sure they are stimulation. It's really different. But I think as a like human likes a social interaction, so I think even for the brain of the parent, it's much more rewarding to be interacting with their babies than having a baby on the wall.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because the way that I think a lot of people have a different sort of perspective on different topics when it comes to kids. Like for example, screen time, the amount of screen time a child is supposed to have. Some people say you can have a little bit more, some people say a little bit less, and like that already seems, I mean, I'm not even a parent, but that to me already seems demanding as to what is a parent supposed to know? Like, can the kid watch a little bit of TV, or is it bad for a kid to watch TV at a certain age? It's just like, what can a parent do? And I can definitely see where a lot of parents have like all that overwhelming stress as to what are they doing right as a parent? If a
Hmm.
child, compared to like the knowledge of a person who has studied children, like just dealing with it in two different ways, like people who experience parenting and people who study parenting definitely say two different things, I think.
Yes. So two things on what you said. So the first one is I think it's really good to come back. Like there's science, and this is great. This is giving us a guideline. But then there's your family. So yeah, it's good to look at the science as a guidelines, sorry, of what they recommend is the best for children in general, depending on the study that was done under a lot of criteria and everything. What is your family? Are you tired? What are you watching? How is your child reacting in front of a TV? So, and go back to what do you want for yourself? So, actually, in the podcast that I was doing in Beyond the Bump, I was saying that if I look back in my childhood, um, actually, one of my favorite moments was watching Friends with my mom. That was I was a teenager, so I was a little older, but that was an extremely massive quality time because I could see my mother making a massive effort to come back into my world. And she did this all the time. She always tried to understand my word and jump into it. But that was a massive moment because we had to wait every week. So it was learning gratification. There was a lot of learning in it. There was massive learning. So taking this away because some science will have said it's better to play board games would have been taking away a massive thing in my life. So you just need to really figure out what do you want to give to your children. But I often say to parents who are extremely exhausted, don't try to not put TV at all if you are extremely exhausted all day long. If you manage to get like 20 minutes rest, whatever it is that you need, and then you feel better, do it. Like do it in give yourself a break if it is the only way you have a break. So it's really depending on your family. And as I know that I had a second thing to say, but I don't remember. That's okay.
It's like so is it true that parents should, there's a fact or myth kind of scenario. Is it true that parents should always put their child's needs first and only bad parents become burnt out doing that?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea to separate both. Because actually, when you think about it, like a child wants to be autonomous. The child want to be answering to their own needs. And you hear it, like they're like, I do it, I put my shoes on, I go to take my water, I want to eat my food. So they want to do stuff. So actually putting them separated is not the way I will look at it. I will look at it in another light, which is actually they want to do stuff by themselves. So put it together and it's one of the needs. So being autonomous and doing stuff by themselves is one of the needs. So yes, there is, for example, attachment parenting, which say that you should be answering to every single need of the children as quickly as you are. People who are into attachment parenting, they will say, I'm really making it like, I'm not explaining really well, but that's like saying the idea of answering to every child's need as soon as he arrives. You also need to allow the child to understand their own needs, see if they can answer to it, and be here to support it. So it's another way to see it, being here to support their autonomy to answer to their own needs. So no, I wouldn't say that's bad parenting.
Okay. Because I feel like with that, it's like the whole on a plane, you're the oxygen mask sort of scenario where
Yeah.
you have to sue yourself first before you do your child.
Yes.
And yeah, so what's your take like on that analogy? Is that something that should be taken in everyday life as a parent?
Yes. It's actually, I use this analogy in my course, so that's really good. Yes, and it's really, really true. And also, we have a role model for our children. So what we are teaching, what we are trying to do is to say your needs are very important. I'm here for it to support it. But what we don't show, and actually as it's coming more and more into daycares, where educators have to show that they are drinking water, that they are eating with the children. So it's also coming in the life of parents in general, but showing to the child, your every single person is actually needs, and it's important to answer to them, not just your needs. Every single person has needs. You have needs and I have needs. And even I still work as a nanny, and I today, for example, I said to my little girl, I'm hungry, it's time to eat, because I was like, you're not hungry, but I am, so we are going to work together to make it work, because I think it's important that she learns that we have different needs, but they both need to be met.
Mhm. No, I think that's really interesting as well, as sort of having that communication with a child and sort of letting them know that yes, I'm a parent, but I'm also another person.
Yes.
And yeah, sort of teaching them that responsibility and that social awareness as well. I think that sort of helps in a way for a child's development.
Hmm. The
Yeah.
needs of the parents are also quite different of the needs of children, because we have more social needs, more like we need to exercise. So talking to all the needs and makes also them understand who you are as a person. What makes you, because the needs are what we are really. So what makes who you are. So it's a very good relationship tool too.
Yeah, for sure. So going into talking about parental burnout a little bit more, with some signs of parental burnout, how can parents tell if they're experiencing the scenario?
Yes, so firstly, I will probably have to give the definition of parental burnout, if that's okay,
Yep,
and then
yep,
I
go
will
for
go
it.
through the testing. So parental burnout, it's a syndrome that affects parents who are exposed to parental stress and miss the resources to deal with the stress. And there are four symptoms of it. So the first one, the first symptom is usually the first one to arrive, and I was talking about it, is the exhaustion. But it's not like everybody's tired. Like being a parent is tiring, but it's more the feeling of waking up in the morning and still not feeling relieved. Like just waking up and having the feeling that the day who is coming ahead is going to be too much. Or like it's also emotional. It's also in a cognitive level and in the physical level. So that's the first one. And parents often say, my battery is constantly low. So that's one of the first symptoms. Another symptom is the overload and loss of pleasure from parenting. So the parents are now unable to really handle being a parent anymore, and they are overwhelmed by it. And parents can say things like, I'm physically here, but I'm not enjoying it anymore. Or I am in autopilot. I hear that a lot. And the third symptom is the emotional distancing from their children. So the interesting part is the two first symptoms. They found it also in job burnout. The third one was a little different because they found out that parents were still in love with their children. And in job burnout, they found that people who were in burnout were not in love with their, I shouldn't say in love with their patient, but you get the idea. They weren't really wanted the best for their patient anymore, which is not the case for parents, which is great news. Because this symptom happened because of cortisol level being high. So it wouldn't have been the wishing of the parents, it would have just have been a symptom. But that's great that the love is so strong that even high cortisol level can't change that. But parents will pay less attention to their children and what they say, and they just care less about their children. But the last massive symptom, and it's a big one, it's a contrast. So you don't you don't begin parenting in parental burnout. It's not like postnatal depression. That's a massive difference. When you are in parental burnout, it has been gradual, and it's because you have given so much to your parenting role before, and it's a battery. You have given so much, and you have had no resources, no rewards from it, and so you just go low, and then you're done. So that's a contrast between what you were before and what you are now. And a lot of parents will say, I feel like I'm a shadow of the parents I was before, and they are really ashamed of it and feel really guilty. So that's the symptoms. So then we were asking, how do parents know that they're in parental burnout? There is actually the Training Institute of Parental Burnout actually made a test. And you can find it on my website. So with my name, helenegatland.com.au. And then there is a parenting service section with parental burnout. And in it, there is a test. And it's like, I always say to people, it is so much better to actually call me and do a 15 minutes free consultation, and I help you through the test and I give you the results, because it can be quite harsh to have the results. But I've said that 100 times and people still go on the website and do it by themselves. And that's fine. Just get ready that you will get the result by yourself. So be prepared that sometimes the result can be quite hard, but you can contact me after it. And I still give 15 minutes free session if you just want to debrief and not go through a course or whatever, just for a debrief if you feel like you weren't actually ready to have the result by yourself.
Okay. So we're talking about going back a little bit, just talk about emotional distancing. How does that affect parenting and parenting a child, and just how does that affect the whole process of being a parent if you're sort of emotionally not there?
It's definitely you're losing interest in your children and you're losing pleasure in being a parent, and you're missing really big moments. So often when people are out of parental burnout, they realize I missed a period because I wasn't really there. I wasn't really caring about them. But that's what it is, and from there will be overlearning for the children. But it's quite, it's definitely affecting, and it's not just affecting the parents; it's also affecting the entire family, the partner and the children. And often I do the course only with the parent in parental burnout, so I don't need to see anybody else, and results happened, and that has been scientifically proven. But after that, I often have parents calling me like a few months after or a month after and saying, oh my gosh, my children changed. My children are so much happier. So the emotional distancing and the loss of pleasure and the exhaustion is felt by the children. So it's good, actually. I often say to parents, let them know what you are going through. Let them know you are getting help. And I use, actually, it's a friend of mine, who, a colleague in Belgium, we use this analogy of, to explain it to the children, she used this idea of your parents thought they were superheroes. They could do everything. They had a massive, beautiful red, you say cape, Is that right? Cape
Cape.
or
Yeah, Cape. Yeah.
but slowly they did so much and they went everywhere and the cape got holes in it and and got a little um, in a less good shape. And we are just helping your mother or your father to feel okay with this, just to make it a little better. All the holes and the cape won't be as beautiful as they want, but it will be a beautiful cape and she will be able to fly again and help you again. So we try to have this idea to help children to understand what parents go through, but they know it. So there is no point to hide it from them.
Yeah. Does the burnout look different in mothers and fathers, for example? Is it something different?
Yes, so the studies have found that mothers are still affecting twice more than dads. The reason is probably, they haven't done a study on the reason, but they believe the reason is probably because mothers still have 70% of the mental charge of parenting, which is changing and it's great. So, but it will slowly, it has an impact that they still have 70% of the charge on, of parenting. Then they found out what was really interesting is actually, so as I was saying, it's a balance. So you have stressor and resources. And what they found out is mother can deal with more stressors and less resources than dad. So if a dad has less stressor and more resources than a mother, it could become in burnout more easily. So they are more prone to parental burnout than mothers. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, that makes total sense.
So that was one massive thing that they found. And why? Again, they haven't done a study on that, but they believe it's because we, as a parents, we don't teach children as much. We don't teach boys as much as girls to be a resilient parents. So to teach children to be dealing with all the stress of to teach the boys to deal with all the stress of being a parent. So yeah, that's something that we need to be more aware of. Are we teaching our boys to be a resilient dad, to deal with all the stress? So they found that the second thing they found in the studies is the symptom. So the symptoms of parental burnout are quite different for mothers and dads. And for dads, they found out that they are more prone into physical abuse and neglect, which is quite massive. And again, it's just the cortisol level being too high. It's not what they want, but it means that we need to be more present for dads who are in parental burnout because the risk on children is higher. And again, the dad can be completely against violence against children, so which means that they can be really guilty and not want to say it. So we need to be more present for them.
Okay, so how would you have that in your opinion, how would you have that conversation with um boys in terms of getting them ready for that next chapter, or sort of seeing, because I know that they understand from examples, so like the role model of the father, but if there's a gap there and if they don't know what parental burnout looks like for a father, how are they able to sort of see that for themselves later on?
Yeah, so do you mean for boys, like little boys?
Yeah, yeah, for little boys.
Yeah, so you're completely right. So the first issue is the role modeling. So we are in a transition stage. So for me, not everybody in my generation, but for me still, my dad was at work, my mom was at home. So it was like two different things. And so my role model, and even with my friends and around me, is mom is at home, dad is at work. So I haven't, in my brain, hasn't modeled the communication between the parents because it was never communicating what was happening in the parenting role together. It was only my mom taking the decision. So I haven't done all of this. So when I will go through my parenting journey with my husband, definitely we will have to work towards being the first generation creating parenting discussions. So I begin to see it in some couples, but definitely I still see a massive, the mother is taking much more decision than the dad. And we really need to change that as soon as we can if we want a change in the next generation. So role modeling, like role modeling is a massive one. And the second one is really, and it's coming too, it's allowing children to play with dolls, allowing children to play with cooking equipment, and doing everything like wiping a bottom while pretending to be on the phone, like this multitasking that mother do and are really proud of, but don't sometimes like nothing happened between just because of one side. And we are really proud of I should say women are really proud of multitasking, but almost don't allow boys to do it because it is not what they think they are good at. So we need to allow that to happen. We need to allow this brain to develop into a more daddy brain.
Yeah, I think that's a really good. I mean, growing up as well, similar to you, I sort of saw my mum is at home, my dad's at work. I see my dad when he comes home, and that's all I know. But especially with now, I think now as I'm older, my dad's now working from home, so now he's always at home. So now my understanding of what he does in the house is very different to what it used to be.
And you're right. I see it also in my family. So that's an interesting fact too. It is not. It is like people are able to change in time. So my dad is also much more present too. So my brain is beginning to understand. Oh, my dad is actually now that he's retired, is helping more. But so yeah, and I can see much more conversation, and I hear my mom now saying we did it together, which I wouldn't have heard before. So yes, all the communication between parents is a really new concept, and it's actually it's one of the reason also there is more parental burnout now, because there is this new story of parents being together instead of being separated.
Okay, yeah.
It's more pressure. You're talking for two people instead of one.
No, I think 100%. I think that just adds I mean, it does split the roles in theory, but I think both sort of deal with it in the same kind of way. Then,
Yeah.
yeah, they do it individually still, I think.
That's right. Like I'm just thinking about us right now, and we are going to try to buy a pram. And I choose a pram, but before I would have just choose a pram, fine. And now I choose a pram. My husband say, "I trust you," but of course I want to tell him, and I want to make sure he's happy with it because I know he will use it. And so yeah, there's more pressure on me than before, where I would have just buy the pram and don't care. I'm the only one to use it. Who cares what he thinks? Now I have to be like, are you sure you like it? Because you will be behind it. Like, are you sure? So it's a very different conversation.
Is it also, I think, like in that way, I think it's sort of the independence is sort of changed as well in a way.
What do you mean by independent? Sorry.
Just like what you were saying about just okay, I'm just going to buy the pram that I like, but sort of having that sort of adds another dependent in
Yes.
sort of the decision making.
Yes, and it puts pressure on each person who takes the decision, because you take the
Yeah.
decision for two. And in the course that we do, there is actually a really good exercise that I hope will get more and more used with time. It's an exercise where you go through the values of each partners. But what you realize when you do it, and of course I did it with my husband, but in the course, like all the parents do it, is you think you have the same values as your partner. That's why you choose each other. Or some values you know are different, but most of them are the same. But what you don't realize is the difference in the importance for you. So, for example, someone will say, oh, it's like both of you will say, being polite and being on time is important. But for one of them, being on time is more important than being polite. So, and the other one will be the opposite. So, if you have a situation where you see someone in the street and they want to talk to you, but you are not on time for your meeting, one will say, but I really need to talk to him. He was talking to me. It would have been so rude to leave. And the other one say, but no, it's really rude. We are late to our meeting. But one thing, like they both have the same value, but one is more important for partner A and the other one is more important for partner B. And so this is a really good exercise to actually understand why are you still fighting on stuff, or arguing on stuff that you agree on, but for some reason it's not exactly the same. So that's the reason, the importance of it. So it's a good exercise, yeah.
No, that sounds like a really, really cool exercise to sort of role play in and sort of get the perspective of the other person.
Yes.
Um, so how, talking about back to burnout as well, how does parental burnout develop? Is it even possible for parents to avoid the stress entirely that comes in with being a parent?
No, so as I was saying, parenting is a stressful journey just because from the day you get pregnant, you have a life in your hands. So I would be very surprised if someone was coming to me one day and saying, "Wow, you said it wrong. I was not stressed at all." And the study shows it. Like at the moment, the study show that parents are quite stressed, even if there is nothing to be stressed in their parenting journey. They are stressed just because they have one more life to care about. So parental burnout, like as I was saying, there is four symptoms, but the three first symptoms, so the exhaustion, is the first symptoms to come up. So when you begin to feel exhausted and you begin to feel like you are not getting better in the morning, that's the first symptom of parental burnout. You don't have to do something at that point, but it's good to be aware. I could be going into parental burnout. Then when you begin to have the loss of pleasure and overwhelm, that's beginning to be harder because your cortisol level are beginning to be really high. And when you have the emotional distancing, your cortisol level are high enough that it's going to be difficult for you to get out of parental burnout without a professional help. That's my own opinion, at least, on what I saw here.
So is it a very like a step-by-step process? So and
Yeah,
see.
so again, the studies are quite new. So it's only in the last year that we are beginning to look into the sequence of symptoms.
Mhm.
And even between us, so I manage a group on Facebook for parents, but I also manage a group for all the people who are trained by the Training Institute, because I felt so lonely in Australia. So I try to have more colleagues. And even us, when the study arrived, we had a massive discussion because I personally felt like that's not always the case. I have parents who come with who have been exhausted but are feeling better now because the children are older, but they still have the emotional distancing. So it's not like, again, it's a guideline, but then for every family, it's quite different. So the guideline is going like this, but then it's quite different for each family.
Okay. So now talking about the management of burnouts, like specifically, what are some of the best ways for you to manage or even prevent burnout once you sort of notice the signs?
Yeah, so the prevention is the best thing to do because it helps you to not go into parental burnout, which is so much easier. Um, Yes, so the thing to do is actually to find resources next to you. So as I said, you will have stress, but you can always add new resources or use your resources more wisely. So whatever you have around you, use it. And sometimes you need to be quite creative. But depending on your personality and the reason why you go into burnout, there will be different things that you can work. So one of the massive thing of people who go into parental burnout is that because they have a perfectionist personality, so they're also prone to job burnout. People want to always do really good, and so the resources will actually to be to work on themselves to be okay with not being perfect. And the
Mhm.
first thing I would say to these parents who are like listening to me and being like, "That's me," is actually in the last century, Winnicott was a child psychologist, and he found out that being a perfect parent is impossible, but it's actually not beneficial to children. What is good for a child is to have a parent good enough. And what he means by good enough is making mistakes and being okay with the mistakes they make and repairing the mistakes. And that was last century. And since then, all the scientists have been saying, yeah, he's correct. There's nothing else to say about what he said. That's right. Being a good parent is more than enough. Don't try to reach perfection and you won't make it. So you will burn yourself on the way. So yes, that would be the idea behind.
So going into marriage, like talking about that even further, I know, like, especially with the use of social media now, and you see a lot of parents and you see a lot of parents on social media, and they're like, it's like sort of having the really Instagram life in a
Yes.
way of view of parenting. How do you, like, talking about managing expectations, is that definitely sort of an influence of how people see parenting?
Yes, but I would say in both ways. So definitely has an influence in making you feel like you're never doing enough. Because of course, for two reasons. Like of course, parents won't put a picture of their children having a tantrum for two reasons. One is because they think no one wants to see it, which is probably more or less true. But the second thing is because they are actually often parents that are present for their children, so they will be caring about their children instead of taking a video of the child doing a tantrum. So it's not like a lot. I hear often people saying, "Oh, no one put this on," but that's also because they want to be present with the children. Um, so yes, we don't see the negative part of the children on social media, and that's getting really hard on parents because it's always this competition. But what we have seen also in the last few years, and I was saying I have a group which is called Parental Burnout, which is for parents to be able to talk in a private group about their own feelings and how they deal with their parental burnout. And there are also other groups. There is a massive one. I think it's an Australian one. Actually, I read it in an Australian newspaper, but I think it's Australian. It's called I think the name is I regret not having children. Sorry, I regret having children. And that was a massive group and of course very controversial. And last time I looked at it on the side, she says, don't even come to ask me to change the name. I'm not going to change it. You can create your own group. But it's a massive thing to be able to have this group, to be able to allow parents to express themselves. Yes, it is really hard to hear that parents are regretting to have children, but they need this space to be able to say it. And I feel like sometimes in your family or in your friends, it's not possible to say it. For some people, it is, but for some people, it's not because of the reason I was saying. Like if parents have wanted children for so long, they don't feel comfortable complaining about it. But in these groups, they are safe, and I see it in the parental burnout group, and I really like enjoy like allowing parents to be able to say it in this group. You can say it anonymously too, saying like, I can't do it anymore. And it's not even them. They know it's not them. They know it's just a symptom and a phase of their mental health that is talking. But right now, my mental health is saying that they can't do it anymore. And they don't want to be there. They want to move towards another space. But to move, you need to be able to say it. So social media also allow, I'm not sure about Instagram really. I'm not into Instagram, but Facebook really allow this support of parents who need to be able to accept where they are and move slowly towards a new solution.
I think that's really having that conversation, having that space is very important, especially when it comes to the relatability of everything. Like your parents aren't going to be 100% perfect all the time, and you can't even lie and say, "Oh yeah, no, I love parenting." I think there's like always going to be moments. Like I know growing up, my mom's definitely said a couple of times, like, "Oh my god, I wish I was not a parent when I was like 22." Because
Yes.
of the life that she definitely missed out on, that she's sort of seeing through us at the moment. And growing up, I was like a bit confused, but now I definitely understand it at my age because she had me when I was a lot younger. When she was around 21, and that's like a huge part of a parent's life,
Yes.
huge part of a person's life as a whole, and like you can't. And it's good to sort of have that space because it's not something that you can sort of talk about publicly. Otherwise, it gets all that kind of hate. It gets all that kind of, you put it up on social media, people are commenting, you should be grateful you have a kid. But it's like, I just need to vent. Like, I need to have that time where someone just needs to understand. So I think you having that support group that you have and that other group is definitely something that is needed to sort of take away the, sort of normalize it in a way. Like, you're not always going to be loving being a parent. Like, I don't have kids, but I can definitely see my friends with their kids and just being them complaining about them half the time. And probably put that out there for a lot of my friends to see. But like, I think it's totally fine if there's some moments where you just don't want to deal with it.
Mm. What parents have to remember is it's actually social pressure that we have created. We have created this idea that parents, as you said, have to be happy 7 days a week, 24 hours. We are not even happy with anything, not even chocolate. 7 days a week, 24 hours. We will be sick of it. So nothing is good enough to be good enough 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. But what is even more interesting is this. So when you're in job burnout, you have the solution to leave your work, to go on holidays, to change your position. So you have all these things offered to you. When you're in parental burnout, you just shut up and keep going. And it's like, no, you can't. And you have to allow parents to be like, same. Actually, in Belgium, there is a massive program where it is the same as job burnout. There is a Red Cross who help parents. There was. I'm not sure if it's still happening, but I know a mother had the children in the Red Cross while she was having a time away because she couldn't deal with parenting anymore. And it's not she couldn't deal with her children; she couldn't deal with parenting. Very different. So it's not the children who are really the issue; it's the parenting role. And yeah, so there is a structure that I've been creating with from some of my colleagues where parents can go for the weekend. Children can go for the weekends, parents have the weekend off. So there is this breathing space. So more we talk about it, more it will happen. The issue is in Australia, being still alone, it's a little more difficult. But as you were saying, it's very interesting also to see in social media the number of persons who just need to vent. And that's probably something that is not yet allowed in social media. A lot of people vent, and you read the post and the publication, who can be anonymous or not, and people are already giving solutions. And sometimes I try to be very careful with, are they asking for a solution, or are they just here to express themselves and be listened to? And you can read it often at the end and I say, sorry, but I just needed to vent or something like that. And then I'm like, that's not my space to be. I can send them like care and love and positivity or whatever they need, but I'm not going to send them solutions. They are not there yet. And that's great. That's great to have this space just to vent.
Mhm. No, for sure. I think talking about the different ways to manage, I think, like, from my experiences as being a kid, I mean, me and my sister were a handful as it is. But I remember my mom used to say that she needs that sort of self-care moments where she'd sort of step away for a weekend or go out with her friends for the weekend and stay at a hotel and leave it leave with leave all of us with my dad. Is that something that would definitely be something that you would recommend for parents as well, right?
So guidelines are yes, then it depends on what you want. So one really important thing that we go back in the course is what is quality time for you, because often it's actually very interesting when you go back when you have parents in parental burnout. They have this amazing, like, it's really a beautiful work for me because it's amazing parents who are coming to me and they are these amazing parents and they're like, can we have time for us? It's almost like, are we allowed? Yes, you are. And so they have been in this idea, not all of them, but a lot of them, they have been in this idea of, some of them, are we allowed to? And some of them, I know we should, but I don't know what it should be. Like, I don't understand how you could do it. So they have completely forgotten about them. And so we go back to what is quality time for you? What do you want to do for yourself? Because for some people, it will be gardening. For some people, it will be exercising. For some people, it will be 5 minutes. For some people, it will be 3 hours. So it really depends on what you need. And some people, it will be social, as you said, a weekend away. So it really depends on what you need. And also being very aware that what works a month, which could be a walk in the morning, could not work the other months because you're too exhausted and you want to stay in bed and it's winter and you don't want to be out in the cold.
Yep.
And often the parents who come to me, as I said, they are perfectionists and they are very like people who have controlled their life. A lot of people are also highly educated. So that's one thing that is interesting about parental burnout. They are highly educated and they read a lot of things about being a mother or being a father. So these people who have done so much in their life, when they have set up a goal, like I will do an hour of walk every morning and I will feel better, then they have issue to go back and say, well, actually, that's not good for me. So we really need to bring back this flexibility. Is it worth it for you today to go on this hour walk? Will you feel better? Or will just a hot chocolate make the deal today? Sorry, I talk a lot about chocolate.
No,
Maybe that's pregnancy.
no, I definitely love that.
But yeah, that's the idea of what is good for you. But being able to say, I'm living and dad is taking care is an amazing thing. Like I'm doing a self-care and dad is caring about you. That's an amazing thing. And being able to express it to you is definitely something that I'm sure will help you as a person yourself. You will be like, yeah, but like mother have to self-care and dad have to self-care. Yeah. So that's a great thing to do, definitely.
Okay, that's good. At least I know that that's the right way to go. I'm gonna um, so going into some questions from the audiences that we've sort of gathered over the time. Um, so the first question is, what are some flags that parents usually show when they're a burnout?
So often, because the parent is so in autopilot and still trying to do everything, they are a little like in the sand, head down, and they don't see it. So the first people actually to see it are the children or the partner. And so it's good to listen to them and also to listen to people who see you. You look more tired. Don't take it badly. It's probably it's probably the first sign of you being burnout. Yeah, and so if the children say to you, I hear a lot of parents who come to me and say, "Oh, I began to be worried when my child said, 'You're so cranky, mommy.'" And so when you begin to hear your children saying, like, "You're cranky, you're angry, you're always screaming," it's all due to, again, the cortisol being high. It's not you, but that's a sign that you are getting into parental burnout. Or if your partner said, "Oh, you look like your mental health is struggling at the moment with parenting," and it's really about the parenting role, of course. Yeah, so that would be a sign.
So, how can children, especially older kids, teens, or young adults even, contribute to reducing burnout in a parent?
Yes, so first thing I will say on that is a study found out that having a child under 5 years old brings parents more at risk of parental burnout. So if you are in parental burnout after a child is over 5 years old, it could be because your child has difficulties, or it could be like it would be a different type of parental burnout. But it's still possible to have a teenager and being in parental burnout. I'm not saying it's not, but it's definitely most of the people I see have children under 5 years old. So over 5 years old, something else in yourself, in your personality, in your situation will change. But the first thing, or the study also find out that the first thing children can do is being more autonomous. So helping more in the house. And again, like we were saying it before, it's hard for parents to do this, but it's actually a massive help in the mental health of parents to have children who are more autonomous.
Okay. How do stay-at-home parents avoid burnout?
So that's an interesting one because again, the study found out that being at home or part time brings more risk of parental burnout, which you will think is the opposite because you have more time doing everything. But actually, the idea is when before you are a parent, you have yourself and you have all the. Are we going to do a video or are people not going to see me?
Oh, it's the video. It's a video.
Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
me again. If I explain everything and then they don't see me.
No, they can see you fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the idea is when you are before being parents, you have like yourself, and this is you, and you have all these different identities, and you have quite a few, like being a girlfriend, or being a boyfriend, or being a daughter, being auntie, or being doing sport or having friends, partying, like all these different identities. And mother is present or father is still present, but it's quite small. But you have this idea of what you will become, what will be your identity as a mother or father. Like we all are great parenting, like thinking that we will be a great parents later. It's already there. But when you become a mother or a father, this identity grows. And for some people, it takes the entire space. And that's what happened for parents who are at home. So instead of having all these other identities, they have one massive identity, which is being a mother or father. And for mental health to be healthy, you have to give to identities, but receive from them. So when you have friends and you receive from it, when you are a boyfriend, girlfriend, you receive from it. And because you have so many identities, when you have a lot of identities, if one is not, if you don't receive a lot from one, that's fine because you have all the other ones. So that's where you get quite healthy mentally. When you have only one identity, like mother or father, who take everything, and then you give so much to your whole, but let's be honest, you don't receive a lot. You receive smile, you receive, smile when they're babies. You receive cuddles, but it's really slow. Like it's like empathy and compassion takes a long time for a child to grow in this brain. So you cannot have it on day one. So it takes a long time for really receiving a lot. And then children are very honest. So you prepare this beautiful meal and you spend so much time and they're like, I don't want it. So yeah, it's the reward is very small compared to other identities. So when you're only mother at home, it's very hard to be having enough reward from this identity. So the thing I always take is think about all the identity you had. Which one do you want to expand again? At what cost also? Is it possible for you to expand that one? And try to expand it again and try to have rewards from it. So try to not just be a parent, try to be all the other stuff you were before, and get rewards from all of them. That's my idea.
So is it sort of like separating your being a parent and you being a person?
Yes, and that's really important. Like, actually, I would say you are a person, parents is in it, and there's all this other stuff in it. And try, like, one thing that I really like to do, and it's really hard, is, and I said it at the beginning, I said, I'm French. And I said, oh, I said it. I like to say, actually, I was born in French because I am not French. That's not who I am. I am Hélène Gatland. A part of me is born in France and cultural France. But in the last 10 years, I have learned English and I have learned the Australian culture, and all these things makes who we are. So instead of saying, I am vegetarian, I am Christian, saying the religion I practice is Christianism. I eat no meat, or I eat a vegetarian diet. Like, you are not, when you say I am, you become one identity. So trying to really train our brain to think we are so many things that makes us who we are. Does that make sense?
Yes, no, that makes perfect sense, especially the different places that you've grown up, different places that you identify as, because yeah, I'm definitely from everywhere around the world, so I think that's definitely relatable.
And you just say identify, and that's a really good word because it identifies, it's our identity. And then people begin to really understand more who you are.
Yeah, perfect. Um, like parents, can children also experience burnout due to parental pressure or a parent's way of caring?
I would be very careful with this question because I really appreciate that there were studies done on parental burnout, and it was a massive journey. And I have a lot of respect on the researcher and how they came into using this word. And I really wish the word burnout is not overused. So I don't want to use it for a child until this is really something that has been studied and very identified and which has data behind. So yeah, I would be careful with that question. Sorry.
Okay, no, that's totally fine. Um, what are the different, I mean, we definitely talked about this, the different levels of parental burnout, talking about um is there a different level separating like physically and mentally, or is it sort of one and the same?
Um, Physically and mentally, I don't think there has been any studies specifically on that. Again, the main factor is cortisol and how it affects you mentally and physically. And as cortisol has a lot of effects, so it will have different effects. So, but I don't think there has been any studies on that particular topic. What I know is what in the studies they've done. So the tests you do, you get a result that will say like if you are in parental burnout or if you are at risk of parental burnout or if you should be a little careful. There's different categories there, and it depends on the how many times you feel a symptom. So for example, I feel exhausted from the moment I wake up. Do you feel that once a day, once a week, once a month, every few months, or once a year? Like so, and if you feel it once a day, it's the highest, of course, and so you will be more at risk, or you will be in the highest category. Yes, so that would be the frequency of the symptoms.
Okay. Um, talking about the role of family, what is the role of a family during if one parent has a complete burnout?
Yeah, so again, I would say guidelines and people, it's very different for each family, but the first thing would be to help the person to see it. So observing it, observing the symptoms, making the person aware of the burnout, and then accepting it for what it is. So explaining that this is just a mental health issue and it can be resolved. And the great thing is it can be like the program that I use has been scientifically proven to reduce the symptom in 3 to 6 months. So it's quite fast. And it's only eight classes, like eight sessions. So saying that you can be helped, then you can find someone who is doing the class. So in Australia, I'm the only one. There is some people also in America, but and in England. So there's a few people who do it in English. So you can choose different practitioner if you don't like my French accent. But then helping them to do the step, because what I find is so I have a lot of people who come to me and say I'm definitely burnt out, but the steps, the last step to go and do the course is the hardest. Once you have done the step to do the course and to have the professional help, I have, which is quite rare, I have 100% of people who have finished the course, which is quite rare in programs for parents. And because it's still a program for parents, normally even like a PPP, which is a famous one, it has a massive drop down. Like people just don't finish the course. But for this course, yeah, people, I never had anyone stopping the course. So, but the step to begin the course is really hard. So really being present for this first step and being present for the next 3 to 6 months with any resources that the person want to try to use. So what we worked for the course is a lot on resources, as I was saying. So if the person want to try to use the parents' resource for cooking or whatever, being present and trying it. some stuff will work, some stuff won't, and that's the beauty of the course is we are very flexible at trying things, and it's very personal. So try it, see it, talk about it, and work with the person, and really listening, being there to listen, and yeah, be present.
Okay. Well, that's really good answer for that. So going on to the next section where we have practice and habits. So, what is a practice that you would recommend for to prevent parental burnout?
Yeah, so there is a lot. So it's I will explain that during the course we go through all the practices that you should change, and the course has been done by the Training Institute, and they go with all the massive risk factors. So they have done a studies with 42 countries in the world, and realize what are the risk factors that bring people into parental burnout. And through that, they made a course that will help people to bring new practices into their life to be less burnout. And so there is eight course, and so we go through six practices that we work on, or six ideas, or six risk factors. The first one is understanding what parental burnout. Oh, sorry. The first one is so that was the first course, but the first one is accept the parents you are and let go of perfectionism. So this is really on the perfectionist aspect that we talked about, and really allowing parents to be okay with it. The second one is developing the emotional competencies, and especially how to deal with stress to lower the cortisol level. Yeah, there is one also actually on understanding what makes you in parental burnout, what in your personality, in your history brings you into parental burnout. Another one is to diminish the mental load of parenting and use your energy more wisely. What we find is often parents spend time on things that don't matter and miss quality time. And on quality time, we work also on gain a new understanding of quality time and how to add this into the family life. So understanding that quality time is actually about not about just the children, and that's a really new concept. A lot of parents believe that quality time is about the child, but there is quality time for the child, going to the park, going for a bike ride if he wants to do a bike ride. But if we are not having fun at the park, this is not quality time for us. So it's great to actually bring back this idea of that's your quality time, and you can even have a drawing of what all the quality time of the child is, or different children. That's what I like to do for me, and it's self care. And that's what I like to do with you. So if you have a family with different children, you will have a lot of paper. Like you will have one for each relationship and one for the family. But like really understanding that a child really understand what I actually do with you, what I actually like to do with you is drawing, or what I actually like to do with you is board games. So it's really different depending on your relationship with the child, but really bringing back this idea of what is quality time for you. And then the two last one are rethinking the relationship with your children and how is that it has shaped by cultural and social pressure. And the last one is to, I don't remember how many I said, but one other one is to strengthen the team that can help you to care about your children and being really okay asking for help. So that's one thing that they found is a lot of people in parental burnout, they don't ask for help, mostly because they don't feel comfortable, or there's a lot of reasons. But one reason they found is actually Australia is on the same study. They found that Australia was a country number one for individualistic values. So because we think we have to do everything by ourselves, we don't ask for help, which makes it much harder for us.
Okay. I think that's definitely something. I think when it comes to the Western view, it's like a lot of people don't ask for help because they feel like there's too much that you have to know before you're being a parent. Whereas you forget like you're still learning to be a parent. Like you're not going to be knowing everything. And you don't know what you don't know. I think that's another thing. You don't know what you have no idea about what you need to know, with the questions that you need to ask.
Yes, definitely.
So going into the next part is definitely a open mic. So this gives you an opportunity to sort of talk about anything that you want to talk about. Doesn't have to relate to parental burnout, or it can if you want to, but just anything that you feel like you would love to share with the audience.
On anything?
It could be about anything. It could be anything at all.
I'm not sure, but definitely, if I because I'm still thinking about parental burnout and my brain is in there, like definitely, I hope that my speech help people to be more relaxed and feel less pressure in their parenting journey, and that they feel like it's more like the idea of it takes a village to raise a child. Um, Yes, and I think, unfortunately, for the people who are in parental burnout now, we almost need, and I'm part of it too, we almost need to be the first one to help the society to change and to be here as ambassador and saying, hey, I am in parental burnout, or I was in parental burnout, and we need so much more help as parents. We need to understand that this is a hard journey, and we need to be less judged by um, or we need to feel less judged and be okay to feel less judged, but also being less judged. And yes, feeling more supported by the society. That would be my conclusion on the parental burnout. But on
And
anything else, I don't really know.
no, then I actually think that this is the perfect place to sort of end the topic and sort of over an overview of everything we just sort of discussed on today's episode. And I really want to thank you for your perspective on parental burnout. I think it's really nice to sort of hear someone who has studied this and really interested in see the sort of scientific side to it rather than just sort of hearing about it, because it's something that you do hear. I think it's just never been labeled as a burnout. It's sort of just like you sort of label it under stress. So it's nice to sort of have a different word to it and a specific word to it rather than just there's a lot of stress.
Yes, and I'm sure one of your listeners will just feel like I have a lot of people who come to me and said, I listened to you to a podcast, and just hearing the name, oh, I felt so much better. And learning that it was studied and they were not the only one, and it was in a lot of countries. Like, this is a massive relief for a lot of parents to realize I'm not alone. So that's definitely really good for parents to have this awareness.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you so much for joining me today, Helen. It was really nice to sort of get to talk to you and discuss this whole topic with you today.
Yes, thank you for taking the time for me and for also your audience. That's really nice.
If you want to look at anything that anyone would talk about Helene or sort of see her website, I think your website is helenegatland.com.
.com.au.
Yeah, then
Hélène
definitely go
Gatland.
and head to that website and definitely have a look at all the resources there and anything that we discussed today that you would like to look at further. I want to thank everyone for listening today and joining me with my guest. It's really an honor to sort of talk to her. And I hope everyone has learnt a lot. I know definitely I have, especially not even being a parent, but still, it's still nice to learn more about it. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening and have a good day.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You've been listening to Raising Parents, the Parenting Science Insights podcast, produced by the Parenting Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes are available from 10 life management perspectives and can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting apps available on your smartphone. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, share, and subscribe to our channel so that other people can find it and we can continue to provide quality content. More of our work can be found on our website at pa.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Dina Sargeant, and thanks for tuning in.